Yo, what is up, guys? It is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, back again today with another fantasy football video. Today's video is Week 6 running back start or sit decisions. Are you going to start this running back or sit this running back in every single matchup from Week 6? Obviously, there are some teams on bye, but they're obviously not included in this video because they're not going to be playing. Now, before I get into the video, I'd like to ask you guys, could please go down below and click that subscribe button. It's going to help me a lot. And I also would like to give you guys a word from my sponsor, OverlayDFS.com. They are a great website. I play on it a lot, and it is very fun. I would encourage you guys check it out as well. Link down below in the description. Cue the roll now. Are you tired of having to pick the perfect player at every single position in order to win on salary cap DFS? Are you tired of having your salary cap lineup out of the running to win that money in the first 5 minutes of the games? Does playing salary cap DFS feel like a job and not even a game? Want a fantasy game where pros with 150 lineups and computer generated programs can't dominate? OverlayDFS.com has a new revolutionary start sit game for fantasy sports. They're the home of the single entry GPP. How do you play? Like I said, it's a simple start sit format. You make 12 start sit decisions from the 30 plus matchups presented, like you can see on my screen right now for week 6. A win, loss, or tie will be awarded to your overall record for each decision you make. Records in the top 10% of users win 9 times your buy-in. 12-0 records win GTD progressive bonus. All matchups are player versus player who will have the most total fantasy points. Usually 8-4 records are good enough to get that cash. Sometimes 7-5, other times 9-3, depending on the week. You make 12 picks in the matchups options listed. For example, for week 6, it could be Pat Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield versus Andy Dalton, Dalvin Cook versus Alvin Kamara, and many more. The object is to stay consistent and finish in the top 10% of the field to win 9 times your buy-in until the stars align and you go that beautiful 12-0. Right now, if you go a perfect 12-0 in the $109 game, you'll win the progressive bonus of over $26,000. They have buy-ins at all levels. If no one hits the perfect 12-0 record of the progressive bonus, keeps growing and growing and growing until it gets hit. It's like the super contest, but for DFS. Don't get shut out. Visit www.overlaydfs.com today. And we are back. Week 6 running back start or sit decisions. First game here is Thursday Night Football. The New York Football Giants at the New England Patriots. Now, we're going to be starting James White and Sony Michel of the New England Patriots. Now, I know Sony Michel is not the most sexy start in fantasy football, but he has been touching that end zone, and I believe against a terrible Giants defense that Sony Michel will be able to find that end zone. So you may be thinking, like, why do you want to start James White if he may not be the one that's scoring those touchdowns? That's because he's a PPR back. He's going to be catching a lot of passes. A lot of balls out of the backfield are going to go James White's way. I think that he will have a successful game this week against the Giants. He seems like an every week solid flex option for me. And then for the Giants, we are going to be starting John Hilliman. Now, you have to understand Saquon Barkley is out, Wayne Gallman out, so it's just going to be the John Hilliman show and whoever is behind him. What I do know is that the Patriots defense is very good against a running back, so he's more of an start. Like if you're in a deep league and you're kind of fucked at the running back position, John Hilliman should be fine for you this week. He's not a guy that I'm going out there and loving to start, but he is a guy that I'm going to end up starting in certain leagues where I'm like looking for a running back because I just don't have any this week due to bye weeks. Next game here to talk about is the Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now I'm going to be starting Christian McCaffrey. Now Christian McCaffrey is dealing with an ankle injury. Will he be good to go on Sunday? Most likely. Now this game is being played in London. It's being played at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're going to have to get up and wake up to watch this Panthers at Buccaneers shit show. Do I want to watch it? Yes, because I love football. Are you guys going to want to wake up to watch it? Potentially not, because this game could be a doozy, could be boring as hell. But Christian McCaffrey is an every single week start. He has more yards as a player than the Jets offense. Oh, Nick, you know that the Jets were on bye week 4, so that doesn't really matter. It still is insane that he has more yards than the Jets as a whole team. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to eat against the Buccaneers defense, and I really like him this week. Probably going to be one of my top 3 running backs, if not number 1. Now, I am going to be sitting down Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber in this game. Now, every single week, it seems to be a different back here. If you want to fire any of them up, go ahead and do it, but I would not necessarily love it, especially if you're in like a 10-12 team league. You really don't need it. If you're in a 14 team league, I guess I would advise Ronald Jones over Peyton Barber because he seems to be more consistent, but it's still looking like a 50-50 split, 60-40 split, and it is not something you really want to hop on, especially against the Panthers defense. Next game to talk about here is the Redskins at my Miami Dolphins. We're going to be starting a few players in this game. For the Redskins, we're going to be starting up Chris Thompson. Now, I think that Chris Thompson is obviously much more of a PPR back, but he's much more of the safer back on the Redskins. He gets a lot of that pass catching work. He will touch the ball a few times in the rushing game, but much of his value comes in the passing game. I think that against the Dolphins, they're going to be passing a lot. This game could potentially actually be a high scoring one because both defenses have not looked too hot. I think Chris Thompson is in for a pretty good game. Now, Adrian Peterson has the tag next to him because I don't know if I love starting him. He is just the running back. He doesn't really get that many passes thrown his way, but I think that AP could be in for an okay game against the Dolphins. If you're in a predicament, you're in a pickle, he's definitely an okay flex start. But Kenyon Drake for the Dolphins, this is the only week you will ever want to start this man because the Redskins defense is not all that good. I think he will get the opportunity to get the ball, and we saw Kenyon Drake from last year be productive in these games. Obviously, this year the line's not so good, the team is not so good, but I think Kenyon Drake will be able to get this work against the Redskins and be worth a start. And we're going to be sitting down, he's not on the screen, Kalen Balaj. I don't think anyone was even willing to start him, so that's why he's not even on the screen. Next game to talk about here is the Saints at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Minshew Mania versus Teddy Roosevelt. I'm going to be starting Alvin Kamara of the Saints. Pretty obvious. You drafted him highly. The Jaguars defense is good. They're probably going to be without Jalen Ramsey again, and I don't think Alvin Kamara will really have too much competition coming his way. He should be fine, and he will be in for a good game. Now, Leonard Fournette is going up against the Saints defense. That is pretty good, but Leonard Fournette is also just one of those guys that's going to get the ball 20 times a game, 15, 20 times a game. He gets fed the ball, and volume is king in fantasy football. As you guys know, he is going to get a lot of touches and be able to get that work to play well against the Saints this week. Next game to talk about is the Bengals at the Ravens. An absolutely terrible game. You're going to be starting up Mark Ingram for the Ravens. Obviously, Mark Ingram has been pretty productive every single game. They are a run-heavy team on the Ravens, and I think that Mark Ingram will be able to get this work this week and play pretty well. Now, we are going to be sitting Joe Mixon, and in a lot of situations, you're going to have to start him. In a lot of situations, you don't have any other option but to start Joe Mixon. And the Ravens' run defense has not been all that good. They have been allowing a decent amount of points to the running back position, but I am definitely worried about the fact that the O-line is garbage and the team just doesn't look that good, and they're going to get behind early. They're going to get out of the game early, and Joe Mixon is just not getting all that much usage. So I would sit him, but if you're in some situations you are going to have to start him, I understand that. Now we have the Seahawks at the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to be starting up both starting running backs in this game. Chris Carson for the Seattle Seahawks last week. He got a lot of work. Did not end up fumbling the ball. Typically, he has the fumbleitis. Typically, he has feet for hands. Did not end up having butterfingers last week on Thursday night against the Rams. But I do think this week, yet again, against the Cleveland Browns, which looked god-awful against Jimmy Guap and the 49ers on Monday night, I think Chris Carson is in for a pretty good game this week, especially since Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman ran a train on the Browns last week. And we're going to be starting Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb right now, he has went from full Chubb week 4, week 5. Now he's got 1/4 Chubb. He's having problems getting it up. He may need one of those pills, if you know what I'm saying. Nick Chubb is probably in for a pretty decent game. The Seahawks' run defense has not looked all that amazing. Baker Mayfield looks god-awful. Odell not getting the ball. Jarvis is just fine, but Nick Chubb is the true focal point of this offense. Knock one time if you're with me. Nick Chubb is going to be great this game. I think against the Seahawks, last week he really disappointed us, but I think he's in for a bounce back game. A lot of people are going to be off of Nick Chubb now due to having one bad game. The Browns offense, I made a joke on Twitter, oh, the Browns offense fucking sucks. Like, they haven't looked that good, but I think at the end of the day, Nick Chubb will be able to get this work and play well. Now, we are going to be seeing down Rashad Penny. Now, I know he has been healthy, and that some people worry that if Chris Carson was to fumble, then obviously Rashad Penny would get that work, and that is necessary. That is pretty true, but you can't just anticipate the fact that Chris Carson is going to fumble and that Rashad Penny is going to end up hopping in the end zone. Now, the Browns defense has been giving up a lot of points to that running back position, but I still think you are getting too far in your head, too far into the stats if you think you should be starting Rashad Penny this week. Next game to talk about here is the Eagles at the Minnesota Vikings. We are going to be starting Dalvin Cook in this matchup. Now, I know that's pretty fucking clear. He is in for a tough game against the Eagles' run defense. The Eagles' run defense has been pretty good, but Dalvin Cook doesn't give a fuck how good your defense is. If you're the Bears, he runs right through you. If you're the Eagles, he'll run right through you. He'll end up having a pretty good game this week against the Eagles. The Vikings' offense is clearly a run-heavy team. Now, they did throw the ball a decent amount against the New York Football Giants last week, but that's probably because Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen were pissed the fuck off. I think Dalvin Cook will end up in for a pretty good game this week. And we're going to be seeing both the Eagle running backs here, Mr. Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. Now, the problem here is Jordan Howard is clearly the back that's going to be getting the touches on the goal line, and Miles Sanders rides the pine when that happens. But Miles Sanders is the pass catching back. Now you're in some type of fucking predicament because Jordan Howard, they seem to want, the coach said they want to give him more touches. Now, why do they want to give him more touches when Miles Sanders is more valuable on the field at all times? I have no idea. So I'm just sitting both of them. I'm not going to worry about this situation. Sure, if you're in a super deep league, I would prefer to start Jordan Howard over Miles Sanders, even though Miles Sanders is that pass catching back. I think there's potential that Jordan Howard hops in the end zone, but I'm still just going to likely sit both of them if I'm in a league where I have comfortable running backs on my roster. Next game here is the Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now I'm going to be starting up Carlos Hyde, but he's the mark on him on the Texans because he is like the most safe back ever. You could just close your eyes, lock him in for 9 PPR points, 10 PPR points, something like that. It is no fun. The Chiefs' run defense looked god-awful against Mr. Marlon Mack last week. Run the damn ball. They had it on their hats. They were hammering the ball. Maybe that's how you beat the Chiefs. Maybe the Texans realize that. But Mr. Bill O'Brien, B.O.B., is fucking stupid, and I don't think he'll even be able to figure that out. So I'm not in for too big of a game for Carlos Hyde. But I will be starting Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy in this game on the Chiefs' backfield. LaShawn McCoy played pretty well last week against the Colts. Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy both put up pretty solid games, so I think they're in for a pretty good game against the Texans this week. And we're going to be sitting down Duke Johnson. Now, Duke Johnson has just not been getting enough work to be a guy that you can start. Now, I know he's put up 2 weeks where he actually was startable, but it's hard to figure that out when they're barely pass the ball to him. They barely give him enough run opportunity. They need to get Carlos Hyde out of there before Duke Johnson's a guy I really love starting in fantasy football. The next game to talk about here is the Falcons at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, we're going to be starting both backs in this game, but there is a predicament for the Cardinals. Now, we already be starting Mr. Devontae Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Cardinals' run defense looks terrible. Their whole defense looks terrible. Devontae Freeman should be in for a pretty good game. Now, David Johnson, if healthy, now he's dealing with his back issue. Will he be good to go on Sunday? In my opinion, yes, he should be good to go. He should be playing on Sunday. But, if he's out, Chase Edmonds is a wonderful start this week against the Falcons. The Falcons defense doesn't look like they could stop anything either. I think Chase Edmonds will be in for a pretty good game if David Johnson's out. If David Johnson in, Chase Edmonds, take him out your brain. You don't need him. David Johnson should be in for a pretty good game if he is good to go. Next game to talk about here is the 49ers at the LA Rams. Now I'm going to be starting Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman of the 49ers. Last week, they looked amazing against the Browns. Now the Rams' run defense may be better than the Browns. They may be able to actually figure out that they're just going to run the ball 30 fucking times in a game, but Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman are both getting that work. Tevin Coleman obviously much more of the pass catching back, still played great in that game. Matt Breida ran the ball for 1,000 yards in that game, looked great, and I think they should both look good against the Rams. Now, do I think that the Rams are going to lose? I think the Rams are going to win this game and sour the 49ers 4-0 record. I think the 49ers are a fraud 4-0 in my opinion. Todd Gurley going up against the 49ers should be a solid start here. There's no way you're benching Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is always a guy that's going to be in your lineup, always going to be a guy that's dominating for your team. Now, not necessarily dominating because he will have weeks where he does only get like 6 touches and doesn't end up scoring 2 touchdowns. But I think this week against the 49ers obviously have a good defense, but I think that Todd Gurley will be able to break through, break free, soaring, flying. You know what I'm saying? Todd Gurley is in for a pretty good game here this week. Next game here is the Titans at the Denver Broncos. Shout out to Joe Flacco. We're going to be starting Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry gets a lot of work. Now, he doesn't get any of that work in the passing game. He also has feet for his hands. The ball come to him. There'll be no one around him. He'll catch it. It'll like touch his hands and fall right onto the ground. It's embarrassing. Derrick Henry, obviously not much of a pass catching back. The Denver defense is not the Denver defense of the past. Now, the Denver defense was actually playing pretty well last week against Gardner Minshew. I believe that was their matchup. I'm like 90% sure. Derrick Henry looked pretty good, and I think that Derrick Henry is in for a pretty good game this week. Phillip Lindsay is obviously the Broncos' safest running back to start. Royce Freeman, if you're in a super deep league, you can go ahead and start him, but it is a very close split, 60-40 in the touches department. It seems like Royce Freeman could obviously any given game pass Phillip Lindsay and be the one that you want to start, but Phillip Lindsay seems to be the safest option due to the fact that he's that pass-catching back. His throw looks fire, and he looks good this week against the Tennessee Titans. Next game to talk about here is the Cowboys at the New York Football Jets. Now, the Jets are getting back Sammy Darnold, Sammy Boy boy is back. Now, we're going to be starting Ezekiel Elliott of the Cowboys. That's a no-brainer. You could have closed your eyes and thrown him in your lineup. We're also going to be starting Le'Veon Bell, and that also is a situation where you close your eyes, you throw him in the lineup. Last week, he looked okay against the Eagles. Obviously, they had Luke Falk in the game, and he is Falcon terrible. He is god-awful. Sam Darnold going to look rusty, but at least he can dump the ball off to Le'Veon successfully. Obviously, Sam Darnold will scare the defense, the Cowboys, a lot more than Luke Falk does. I think that at the end of the day, Le'Veon Bell will be in for a decent game this week, and as Sam Darnold progresses and gets less rusty and gets into game shape, I think that Le'Veon Bell will obviously have a huge bounce back into this season. Next game to talk about here is the Steelers at the LA Chargers. We're going to be starting up all the main starting running backs in this game. James Conner for the Steelers. Now the Steelers without Jalen Samuels got his knee scoped out for likely 1 month, potentially even more. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but James Conner is going to be the true workhorse, the king that he was last year. He may rejoice and save your fantasy football season. Praise be to the fantasy gods. I'm sorry that Jalen Samuels had to get hurt for it to happen, but James Conner is going to look great this week against the Chargers. Knock one time if you're with me. I'm all in on James Conner this week. Now, for the Chargers, I personally think Austin Eckler is still the bigger and better start than Melvin Gordon. Once Melvin Gordon gets a little more used to the offense, gets back into things, starts getting more touches, he's going to be the one, the king, to be starting on the Chargers. But right now, Austin Eckler is too good to not be used. He can catch the ball, run the ball, do everything. He's going to be a good back this week against the Steelers. And I agree that Melvin Gordon is definitely a guy you can definitely still start in your fantasy football lineup. I'm not against starting him. Obviously, he's still a good talent. I would start him. And we're to sit Benny Snell. He's the backup for James Conner. No one's really looking to start him because I think it really is going to be more of a James Conner workhorse situation, getting 80% of the touches. Benny Snell gets like 20. Next game here is the Lions at the Packers, which I believe is the Monday night game. It is Lions at Packers. We're going to be starting both backs in this game. Kerryon Johnson, coming off the bye, should look pretty hot against the Packers. Super hot fire. I think he's in for a pretty good game. He's been playing well. They've been using him in the passing game. They've been giving him a lot of touches. Now, the problem is Matt Patricia, with the pencil in his ear, is such a dumb motherfucker that he'll run the ball no matter how many guys are in front of Kerryon Johnson in the box. There could be 12 men in the box like the Seattle Seahawks fans. That's how many guys there could be. Matt Patricia would still signal for the handoff to Kerryon Johnson, but I think he's still in for a pretty decent game here. Aaron Jones obviously not going to score 4 touchdowns in this game, but the Lions defense has not looked all that great. I think Aaron Jones is in for a pretty good game as well. Obviously not 4 touchdowns. Jamal Williams may be coming back, and that is definitely something that you have to monitor because Aaron Jones won't be getting 9,000 touches because Matt LaFleur is a fucking dumbass just like Matt Patricia and will give Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams a split of the carries. But thank you guys all for watching this video. If at any point you enjoyed, knock one time on that subscribe button, knock one time on that like button. Have a great rest of your guys' goddamn day. Check out overlaydfs.com. Wide receiver video coming later. I love each and every single one of you. Have a great day. Good boy.